Now, for a review of what's making the headlines this morning, we will be jointly dissecting the major newspapers, the headlines of the newspapers this morning. That's right, Gwenga. We'll be looking at the top stories that are shaping the agenda. Let's begin with this day newspaper. The economic story is front and center. It says FAAC, NUPRC remitted 6.2 trillion naira revenue despite oil output fluctuations. PDP governors abandoning platform that brought them to power will soon regret. We also have there's a photo of the Ofala Festival in Onitsha, hosted by His Majesty the Obi of Onitsha. Moving on to leadership newspaper, allocate 1% of GDP to education infrastructure, IMF tells Nigeria. Zamfara government reinstates 103 sacked teachers. Nigerians don't want coups, say Afenifere Middle Belt Forum. Daily Sun, Kano tension in Abuja over Shawara-led protests today. ASU considers indefinite strike as action enters second week. MBF raises the alarm as killings escalate in North Central, and Ned Nwoko accuses wife Regina of drugs, alcohol abuse. Vanguard, NSAS at 5, memories, matters, unfinished struggle for justice. Nigeria spends 3.53 trillion naira in raw materials import in H1 2025. Daily Independent, we're considering proposals for viable national carrier, FG. 18% inflation signals hope for rate cut, market recovery, and FG says mathematics still compulsory for O-level students. Forgery row puts PDP's national convention at risk. New Telegraph, still on the PDP convention. Crisis deepens as Anyanwu alleges forgery petitions DSS, INEC, police. North leads with 56% of Tinubu's federal appointments, says FCC acting chair. Abuja Inquirer, hashtag free Nnamdi Kanu protest, Abuja braces for showdown. There's also that story on FG maths, English remain compulsory for O-level students, and police crash robbery gang linked to Kuje prisoner, why come? The Punch newspaper, still on the free Nnamdi Kanu protest, protesters defy security warning, vow Villa march. The Guardian, farmers in limbo as bureaucracy stalls, 50 billion naira tractor rollout. Coup denial not enough. Stem rising anxiety, discontent, stakeholders tell FG. ADC says defections can't save APC in 2027. Now to the international headlines. The Daily Graphic, Trump tells Kyiv, take deal or be destroyed. Ceasefire still holds, insists Israel after wave of strikes. Financial Times, still on Ukraine and Russia. Trump warned Zelensky in meeting that Russia could destroy Ukraine. The Times, Prince's bid for police to investigate his accuser. Newspaper, ceasefire in peril as Israel bombs Gaza, blocks aid and accuses Hamas of attack. The Independent revealed the true cost of letting our prisons crumble. Citizen newspaper, state security out of control, from a cushy job to helping the poor. Gen Z thinks out of the box with hunger. We also have metro.co.uk, and when he was down, he was down. That's talking about Prince Andrew engulfed by deepening scandal. Daily Graphic, survivor recounts ordeal. And that's all for the international. Let's return to this day newspaper, and starting with that lead story. FAAC, NUPRC remitted 6.2 trillion naira revenue in 9 months despite oil output fluctuations. So the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission made a total of this remittance to the Federation account between January
and September 2025, consolidating its position as the federal government's biggest revenue contributor this year. We do know that there was that increase in non-oil revenue, but at the same time, this is the biggest revenue earner. And so, I mean, I think it reflects progress in the oil revenue recovery and trying to boost government finances. However, transparency in how these additional funds are managed will determine whether the benefit reaches average Nigerians or ordinary Nigerians. There also needs to be sustained improvement, in tackling those structural challenges, whether it's subsidy costs, oil theft, and production inefficiencies.
Yeah, I think this is a good one, albeit some reservations. When you look at it, I think it has, the Nigeria's oil sector has shown great consistency, and it has poised itself for long-term economic growth and to also boost investors' confidence. That's what we are saying, courtesy of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. But there are some other underlying issues that we need to really get straight in terms of harmonizing in terms of transparency in the oil sector, and that's the unaudited account of the NNPC, which runs to over 200 trillion naira. And also, there is also a fly in the ointment of this blueprint, the Frontier Exploration Fund. If you look at the Petroleum Industry Act of Section 9, subsection 4, it states that 30% of the funds generated by NNPC should be channeled into exploration of new oil and gas fields. So this is a huge amount of money, if you ask me, and obviously and apparently. So there is a need for transparency to see how these funds will be deployed for further exploration to generate further revenue. And so I think a lot of transparency is needed in that area. Otherwise, we are in good cause. But I think NNPC should come out in this era where we are, where transparency is the watchword, should come out and answer questions on this unaudited 200 trillion naira fund, which the House of which the Senate is currently investigating. I think Senate is a bit it's backpedaling. Is slowing down the momentum. The momentum in which it came out to probe this fund has really slowed down. The public is worried because this is a very huge fund. So I think with all this framework, I think if the NNPC should come out, let us know where we actually stand, and that would also promote further investors' confidence in this sector.
So that falls back to the structural inefficiencies that we're talking about. You know that oil theft was for about 10 years now, more than 10 years,
Absolutely.
A major issue in that sector. What we are seeing is that there has been some progress in tackling that. It's not completely over. However, this increased revenue shows that there is movement in that area. Nevertheless, still a lot of work to be done in that sector. Let's go to the second story in this day newspaper, and that's the politics. PDP, governors abandoning platform that brought them to power will soon regret. And let's pair that story with another PDP story in New Telegraph, if we can pull that paper up. Convention PDP crisis deepens as Anyanwu alleges forgery petitions DSS, INEC, police. So Samuel Anyanwu is the National Secretary of the PDP and is alleging a cloning of his signature in a letter addressed to the Independent National Electoral Commission. This letter was without his knowledge and authorization, he says, and has asked the DSS and the police to investigate it. So last week, it was a dispute between the acting national chairman, Omar Adamagu, and the National Legal Secretary, Kamaldeen Ajibade. Now we have this. So the big defining moment will be whether, that much talked about convention is derailed or it holds. But, for their party members saying, you will regret leaving the PDP. A quick thought on all of that.
I think that this further exposes the state of disarray in which the People's Democratic Party is right now. You talked about the tussle, the legal tussle between the national chairman and the legal advisor just last week.
Yes.
The case is still on. And you have a convention that is less than a month now. And all important, expectedly all important convention. And now the governors are saying that they will regret. I think that's a fallacy of logical reasoning. If I would grade, I think that's a fallacy of argumentum ad misericordiam. That's a fallacy of wishful thinking. And also, I also think that there's a bit of...
Are you sure, Benga?
Yes.
Some might actually regret.
Well, but the factors
yes.
driving this defection
yes.
is what the leaders of the PDP had failed to look into.
But
that's the fundamental issue. So these are the fundamental issues tearing the party into disarray, and this started prior to the 2023 election when it failed to look at the zoning structure.
Let me just come in there,
within the party.
You know, you are right. The party is struggling with internal discipline, with cohesion, and managing itself. So the excuse for a lot of the people leaving is that the party is in disarray and cannot hold itself together. However, you know, there's also that thought that, for instance, governors that are in their second term, what's the excuse you're leaving for, you know, or you're giving
again,
or offering?
It's like a catch-22 situation. The same reason that further exposes the state of disarray in which the PDP is in right now. Because if someone is completing his second term and he still feel that this platform does not serve the best interest of his people, it shows that there is a lot more fundamental rot within the party that they are failing to look into. Don't forget that the FCT minister have also submitted a 6-point demand that has a legal backup, and nothing has been said to address this issue. So when you look at it, it's more like a wishful thinking on behalf of the leaders of the party.
Well, let's see. Abuja Inquirer this morning, #Free Nnamdi Kanu protest. Abuja braces for showdown. Indeed, we already saw visible signs this morning. If you were driving into Abuja, major roads have been blocked by the police in anticipation of that demonstration. The Free Nnamdi Kanu protest is led by journalist and activist Omoyele Sowore. This demand was particularly reignited by news of his poor health and the pardon of 175 people by President Tinubu recently, including criminals, drug dealers, and traffickers and murderers. The government does not want this protest, and in its usual style obtained a court order to stop protesters from moving into certain areas in Abuja. It also got a Nigerian Medical Association health assessment claiming Kanu's ailments are not life-threatening, and that the protesters claim that they have not been served, so they will go ahead with the protest. I think this just highlights once again the deep ethnic and political tensions that continue to shape national conversations in this country. Kanu's prolonged detention in DSS custody defies court orders and represents a broader pattern of government suppression of dissent. Critics go as far as saying that this confirms that this is a lawless country where, you know, the government does not obey its own laws. Yes,
the detention of Nnamdi Kanu, the presumed IPOB leader, predates this tenure of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But I think that he should have seized that opportunity. And concerning the protest, I think Section 39 and 40 guarantees the right for every Nigerian to air their speech and to I think my producer is signaling me because any moment from now we'll be having live feeds from the venue of the planned protest today, even though there was a last-minute injunction last Friday on this issue. So we'll be connecting with the streets of Abuja now.
So we just arrived. So we just arrived, and we're here. Tear gas or no tear gas, we're here.
Yeah, we're ready for
this. Yes. Peacefully.
Yes. Any banner here? Any banner, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is bringing the banner? Who is bringing the banner?
These are live footages of that protest going on in Maitama area of Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. We have the leader of the protest, Omoyele Sowore, there, Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers and other people. Apparently, they've been able to move ahead with that protest in spite of the fact that the government did not want them to move ahead with it, although there are certain areas that they are prohibited from marching through. So it is true, reactions are mixed on this protest and the release of Nnamdi Kanu. On the one side, this is perceived as an example of injustice and marginalization of the Southeast. On the other hand, supporters of the government say Nnamdi Kanu faces serious charges relating to national security. Yes, he is yet to be convicted after detention for at least 10 years. It just shows the delicate balance between maintaining state security and respecting fundamental human rights of citizens. After all, many people that are running around the country that call themselves terrorists, bandits, kidnappers are walking free. But the way the government handles this can calm tension or further inflame an already divided polity.
Okay, it leaves a very deep concern to see that this protest coincides with the End SARS protest in 2020, October 2020. So 5 years ago, what are the lessons learned? Because a lot of analysts called that a metaphor for end bad governance. And what we've seen now is it's been perceived by majority of Nigerians and many people, many sympathizers of the Nnamdi Kanu's detention as a gross violation of the rule of law. We understand that records show that in 2022 the appeal court discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu, and but the federal government immediately filed a redress to the Supreme Court, but we've not seen any proceedings since then. Now, 2022 to 2025, now it's running to 4 years. So, some group of Nigerians now being led by Omoyele Sowore is protesting the gross violation of this rule of law and calling it a serious injustice. And he said that this is beyond Nnamdi Kanu, that the violation against one is a violation against all. So he's calling for the supremacy of the Constitution. Omoyele has built a towering reputation as someone who speaks truth to fire, a fearless protester, and that's what we are seeing at Maitama today, when these people are converging despite an injunction last Friday against a strong attempt, a failed attempt to stop him, though we had a conditional grant of injunction that the protest could not go beyond some certain areas. And many are wondering if this is not synonymous with with crippling the protest, because the essence of a protest backed by section 39 and 40 that empowers every Nigerian to be entitled to his own opinion, that guarantees that freedom in expression of speech, and also that guarantees in section 40 the freedom of association, to join any political movement, to join any political party, and also freedom of association. So when you look at this issue, that is the sentiment that is being conveyed at the Maitama area in Abuja. Dr. Constance. Yeah,
so you mentioned the 5-year anniversary of the N6 protest. It is amazing that this is coinciding on the same day that this protest is happening. I think what this highlights is widespread perception of injustice in Nigeria. slow trials. We have selective application of the law, which has eroded public confidence and trust in Nigeria. The inability of the judiciary to hold powerful people accountable to the poor, but the people that seems to not to be powerful in the country are the ones that are being held accountable. So you have that sentiment all across the country. There's also the talk about judicial independence and how it is frequently undermined by executive interference, and of course inadequate funding. Strengthening the judiciary through reforms is something that lawyers and politicians and the general public have fought for over the years, and we are still here. We have not achieved it successfully as a country yet. Again, that protest demanding the release of Nnamdi Kanu is so crucial at this point. That issue started when President Muhammadu Buhari was in office, and the way and manner which he handled that case left a sour taste in the mouth of a lot of people, including or mostly people from the Southeast. And so what President Tinubu does with this particular matter and this particular case will determine a lot for the near future. So the protests are ongoing. We have, that's Nnamdi Kanu there. There were reports about his failing health, but we also got that statement from the Nigerian Medical Association saying that he is strong enough to continue to stand trial. Mind you, he is not in prison, he is in detention of the Department of State Security Services, and which is why his lawyers and his supporters are saying you cannot keep a man in detention forever. If he is guilty, charge him. If he's guilty, convict him, and then let him go to jail and pay for his wrongdoing.
Yeah, it leaves very deep concerns. We wonder if lessons have been learned from the NSAS protest in 2020, where people came out from all corners of the country to raise their voice against what they call the NSAS, which later became an End Bad Governance protest. So this is the situation right now from live feeds coming from our correspondents across Abuja. That's the situation. The Omoyele-Sowore-led protest has gone out to raise their voice to free for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, that has been argued that he was kept unjustly in detention.
Okay, let's move on to other stories in the Leadership newspaper. Allocate 1% of GDP to education infrastructure, IMF tells Nigeria. Available data shows poor spending on education, 0.55% in 2012 to 0.35% in 2022. And then we have 2023 4.4% of total expenditure, which is below UNESCO recommended 20% from national budget. And then in 2025, 7.08% allocated from the budget. While the country's public expenditure has grown tremendously over the years, it still largely goes to wages, subsidies, and administrative costs, areas that do not drive growth. I mean, failure to invest in this sector undermines national progress. We know we don't have much time to discuss that. So let's see the Daily Times this morning. English mathematics compulsory for all O-level candidates, FG. The Ministry of Education made this clarification in light of the news circulating last week that mathematics was no longer compulsory for admission into tertiary institutions. The ministry said, and I quote, it allows institutions to admit candidates into specific programs where credit passes in either English or mathematics may not be compulsory, while still mandating that students register and sit for both subjects. So the point is that you still have to sit for mathematics. However, they're not leaving it to institutions, various universities, to decide whether you need to pass mathematics or have credit in mathematics in order to be admitted into university. In our time, I mean, it was compulsory. You have to have credit at least in mathematics and English. So this is a lowering of the bar. Although the way they put it, they said they want to provide access and inclusivity to broaden academic pathways, recognizing different trends among learners. Daily Independent, let's move quickly on that. We're considering proposals for viable national carrier, says the federal government. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, says only credible proposals will be reviewed, and they're already receiving those proposals. Again, the country has toyed again before with this idea severally. It did not work. It often collapses after a while due to what we already know: political interference, corruption, poor management, frequent leadership changes. So we'll have to watch and see whether this goes through. To the international headlines, quickly. Zimbabwe, we know that reactions continue to pour in, over the ruling party's decision to extend the tenure of President Emerson Mnangagwa by 2 years until 2030. Then in Morocco, the country is still in the throes of Gen Z protesters demanding education reform and the ouster of Prime Minister Aziz Akanouch for corruption. Japan, a very conservative country, on course to elect its first Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi. 64-year-old Takaichi is a former government minister and will be faced with a huge task of heading Japan's Liberal Democratic Party to regain public trust after a series of scandals in that country. Then Daily Mail, a heist at the Louvre Museum in Paris. Crown jewels were stolen. There was a chainsaw gang, stealing priceless Napoleonic jewels in that country. Paris has become so, stealing and robbery has become so common in Paris, the capital of France. I wonder what's going on there. A first world country, I think, exhibiting the signs of a third world country. And then finally, the Daily Telegraph, Trump tells Kyiv, take deal or be destroyed. And of course, those protests that we're having all across the United States against Trump, saying he is a fascist ruler and he's subverting democracy. Your thought on any of the stories? Yeah,
we were here yesterday, last week, when we discussed this insurgents and governance in Africa, when we said that it's not just military coup that we should be aware of. We should be aware of civilian coup, legal and constitutional coup. And that's what seems to be happening in Zimbabwe now, when the Mnangagwa regime is trying to extend its tenure till 2030, and now we are now failing to declare what the opposition within the same ruling party, ZANU-PF, is also challenging, and they're alleging treason against Chiwenga. So when you look at this issue, it looks more like a constitutional coup than a military coup. And it's obviously more like a one-party system when you look at it. And I think that further resonates the fact that democracy is in Africa. Democracy is in crisis, rather. And I think that African leaders, I called for the need for an Africa peer review mechanism.
Would that too much, though?
Yeah, because they need to, we need to be, the leaders need to be their brother's keeper. So they have the African Union. They have the African Union. They have the African Union. It's a body. But I think recently, from the 2003, when it was formed by former President Obasanjo and Abdulaziz Bouteflika, I think it's not been as effective as then, because those were African leaders that had strong charisma. Yes. And I think that's what is missing now. And they believe in democratic tenets. Democratic tenets. So I think that there is a need to reactivate that spirit of Africa peer review mechanism. And also they need to also understand that we need to find a homegrown democracy that would work for all and work for the development of Africa.
Indeed, I agree with you that there is an absence of leaders of global and regional stature today in Africa, apart from President Olusegun Obasanjo, former President Olusegun Obasanjo.
And that also reinforces the need to strengthen our electoral process, the integrity and the sanctity of the ballot.
That's all we can take on the paper review today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Constance. Okay, you're watching Daybreak, and plenty more still ahead, just to give you updates on that Free Nnamdi Kanu protest going on. and security operatives have fired tear gas to disperse gathering protesters. That's the latest from the ongoing protest. Keep it here on Arise News as we bring you more updates on the day, as the day unfolds. Dr. Constance, it's been, we thought it was just going to be a 5th anniversary of the NSAS reminder, and now Omoyele Sowore, the leader of the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest, is also launching his own protest against court's injunction that some areas should not be, there shouldn't be protests in some areas. What do you make of this situation?
Well, I remember that he granted a press conference yesterday where he said that they have not received any court injunction. That means that they have not been served, according to him. What that means is that they will continue or go ahead with the protests which they have. However, they will be unable to do that because, as we can see from the live feeds, and even when you're driving into Abuja this morning, the police had already blocked strategic points that would lead to Aso Rock Villa.
They've cordoned some strategic areas. Yes. Okay, but I think we need to go on break now. It's 7:34 West African time. This is Daybreak.